Okay, so the concluding Shiur on Mesilas Yesharim, which is like an overview, like a bird's eye view, kind of. Again, I'm not even sure where to start and how we're going to put it together, but let's see. So to summarize, I think, in my mind, we had a major breakthrough in understanding Mesilas Yesharim, in the sense that there is a very clear we know there's a progression, but there's a very clear progression in his approach to the progression of Reb Pinchas ben Yair, which is, in the progression, to me, is that from a self, a person, an individual, trying to fulfill the Ratzon Hashem on some basic level, to transforming himself into a real Eved Hashem, or to a neshama with a body, right? As opposed to starting out with a body with neshama, and you transform, and that's why it's called Mesilas Yesharim. Again, in the beginning, I thought maybe Mesilas Yesharim, we pointed this out before, that we say Bifi Yesharim tis halol, right? So we have Bifi Yesharim tis halol. There are Yesharim, there are tzaddikim, there are chasidim, and there are kedoshim. There are 4 levels that we say in davening. So Yesharim seems to be the beginning. So Mesilas Yesharim sounds like, Yesharim is the beginning. So why is he naming the book after Yesharim, which is like for somebody who has straight midos, good midos, which is kind of the beginning. It's like a prerequisite thing, because derech eretz called Torah. Derech eretz is a prerequisite, really, to beginning the sefer. Even before you start Mesilas Yesharim, you need to have some basic derech eretz. So why is he naming the sefer Mesilas Yesharim for the beginning? Usually you name a sefer for the end, so it should be say Mesilas Kedoshim, right? Mesilas Chasidim, right? So so that's one breakthrough. One breakthrough is that we see throughout the sefer that the idea of Yashrus comes up again and again, right? Comes up again and again, because without Yashrus you cannot make the next step, right? Without being straight, every new idea that you have, you will twist it again, like we see in our crazy world. Like, this is right. You could throw you the biggest truth in your face, and you will figure out how to twist it, right? You could have chokhmah, you could have wisdom, but if you don't have derech eretz kodma Torah, if you don't have yashrus, then you're not on the path. You're off the path. We're not on the beginning to discuss it with you. And yashrus is the thing, right? Since the whole concept of Reb Pinchas ben Yair is that each step, mevia, brings you to the next step, right? So that mevia, that bringing, is only possible with yashrus, with straightness. Then you can internalize these ideas. That's number one. Number two, that was one breakthrough. And the other breakthrough was that, again, the entire Sefer brings you to the idea of Kedusha, where let's say, again, why is Anova all the way towards the end, right? Because, Anova could have been at any point in time. Anova seems to be as a separate track. You could be an Onav before you could be a Chassid, you'd think, or before you could be a Parish, which is separating from the extras of the world, right? Anova doesn't seem to be in any way connected. And Mesilas Yesharim is telling us no, because at the end of the day, all of these levels are dependent on your ability to be less self-centered. By definition, we are self-centered, and basically all of this sefer is Yashrus, is the ability to realize that being self-centered is not Yashrus. It's the biggest, so to speak, perversion is being self-centered. Right, and he repeats again. So he uses the word Yashrus, especially when it comes to Anova, right? Somebody who has Yoisher HaSeichel, he's going to be an Anova. How could you be in it, right? So in other words, Yashrus is another way that a person is able then to not look at himself, into himself, but rather look out towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then therefore adjust himself to the point where he's able to actually not be a body with a soul, but being a soul with a body, and really becoming like a malach. And that's okay. So that's the general overview. The other overview is, again, so really again, we'll see in a second. the project of this sefer, even though again Yashrus is the tool of the sefer, right? And the end of the sefer is kedusha. But as we pointed out last time, the project of the sefer is not kedusha, right? It is really chassidus, right? It is really chassidus, because the midas are right, according to his understanding, is zehirus, zrizus, nikius, right? That's the first set. Nikius is cleanliness. Okay. And again, the way he understands cleanliness is removal of biases, of justification and rationalization. Not all biases, but justification and rationalization, right? So those three, zehirus, watchfulness, zrizus, zeal, alacrity, and nikias, are all for a person to be a tzaddik. A tzaddik is somebody who does what he's supposed to. The Shulchan Aruch says, do this, he does this. Again, it's not because he's such a selfless individual. I am selfish, but Hashem tells me to do it. I do it. Okay, so that's on the level of Zehirus, Zerizus, Nikias, and you could put that all onto a category of Yira. And even more than that, I'm saying, Yira Shamayim, right? I'm afraid of heaven, so I do what Hashem wants me to do, right? However, again, the last level before Kedusha is called Yiras Chet, right? So really, Ramchal, this sefer, and this is not me talking, this is Rav Chatzkel Sarna talking, one of the the big commentaries on the sefer, early commentaries, is that the name of, meaning he says the name of this work is Yiras Hashem, right? Because, and I'm slightly changing this, but that Yiras Chet is the last level before Kedusha, right? Yiras Chet. Even though he spoke about Yira numerous times in the Sefer before that, right? Yiras Haroimimus, Yiras, the fear of Hashem in terms of his loftiness versus Yira of Hashem of the punishment, right? What I'm saying is that the truth is, Ramchal kind of, this Sefer, Mesilas Yesharim, is really a manual for Yiras Hashem, right? And he redefined Yiras Hashem in a way that nobody else said before. In other words, he created this new layer of Yiras Hashem that's on top of Yiras Haroimimus, right? On top of fear of Hashem's greatness. It's called Yiras Chet, right? Fear of sin. What's fear of sin? That anything possibly that could in any way, even in the most distant way, lead you to sin, you're going to run away from it. You're going to run away from it. Again, so that sounds like anxiety, OCD, you're going crazy over every little thing. And the answer is no, because like we point out that OCD, anxiety, those are fears. What are those fears? Those are fears because I'm afraid for myself, right? I'm afraid for myself. So I'm going crazy, anxious because I'm afraid for myself. It's a defense mechanism for self. Yiras Chet, on the other hand, is I'm so kind of deeply in love with God and I'm so afraid to ruin my connection with God. It's not nothing with me. It's just the opposite. I'm afraid because of my great love. That Yiras Chet is an extension of Ahavas Hashem. It's not a Yira really. We call it Yiras Chet, but it really is an extension of Ahavas Hashem, right? So again, so in other words, again, if you were look into the entire progression, right? You have Zrizus, Zehirus, Zrizus, Nikias. Then you have Prishus, separation, Tahara, purification, Chasidus, Anova, Yiras Chet, and Kedusha, right? So then really there are two chunks. There's really Tzadikim, right? Being a Tzadik, and that's the first three Midas, Zehirus, Zrizus, Nikias. And then you have Chasidus, which is related to Havas Hashem, where you go above and beyond what Hashem wants from you. Sometimes on the Prishus, where you're separating yourself from negative things. Sometimes Chasidus, where you're coming closer to Hashem and positive things, right? Sometimes Anova, when you are diminishing yourself in the eyes of because of you're realizing how great Hashem is and how little you are in comparison. And sometimes by Yiras Chet, which is again is an expression of the deepest love for Hashem, where you're trying to remove any possible obstacle that could in any way appear before you, right? So again, this is the overview of Mesilas Yesharim, which at least I haven't seen it like this framework that he sets up, brought up like that. Okay, but in any case, so now I just want to kind of, so that's the bird's eye view of Mesilas Yesharim. But I want to go back first to the very beginning, which is the source. But there are two sources really. In the introduction, he tells us that when he screams like that people are not learning Yira, right? And let's ask a question, like a basic question. I think we discussed it a little bit back in the beginning. Maybe we could answer now a little better, right? The start of the Mesilas Yesharim seems like a lie, right? Because he says, Omer HaMechaber, right? The author writes, "Hachibur hazeh lo chibartiv, l'lamed libnei odom es asher lo yodo." I did not write this sefer to teach people something that you already don't know. Right? So in other words, everything, he says, "Ela askirim es hayedu olam kvar." I'm only reminding them what is already known to them. Umeforsim etzlom pirsim gadol. It's really so obvious to them, evident. Majority of my words, he says, is things that most people already know. And they don't doubt them at all. But rather because they're so commonplace, because their truth is so well known, so too people disregard them because they're so cliche, so obvious. People forget them, right? That's what he says. Okay, that's what he says, and that's what he says. You can only really benefit if you read this often, just as a reminder. But really, there's nothing new here, right? Yet, quite just a few, pages later, he tells us that there is no greater wisdom than Yiras Hashem. Right? So first he screams and he bemoans, how could you, if you're never going to spend time on this type of learning, he says you won't understand, there's no way you're going to understand it. So even you understand how important it is and you understand it's valuable, but unless you spend little time delving into it, he says you're going to lose it, right? But then he says, right?
We're talking about
Ramchal, right, and this is the introduction. So he's Huma Shomer Shlomo. Then he says, this is what Shlomo HaMelech says, Im tibakshena kekesef, if you seek it like silver, ukamat moinim techapsena, and if you seek it like treasure, right, search for it like treasure, oz tavin yiras Hashem, then you will understand the fear of Hashem, right? Eina oimer, Shlomo HaMelech doesn't say oz tavin philosophia, then you're going to understand philosophy, oz tavin tchuna, then you're going to understand astronomy, or oz tavin refuah, then you're going to understand medicine, Ostavin dinam, you're going to understand law, right? Ostavin halachis doesn't even say you're going to understand halacha, right? Ela ostavin yiras Hashem, then you will understand yiras Hashem. Harei lecha, so he says, so you see that in order to understand what yira is, right? In order to understand what yira is, you have to search for it like silver and gold and treasure, right? Again, why is he stressing specifically this idea of Ostavin Yiras Hashem, that you'll understand Yiras Hashem? Again, because this is his input. His input is, I'm introducing a new level of Yiras Hashem that really nobody before me really spoke it out like this, right? This whole concept of Yiras Chet, to put it at the end of the entire progression, right, didn't exist before him, right? So he's really telling us in the beginning, where he just told us, listen, guys, I'm not telling you anything new. And then he says, yeah, you know what? Shlomo HaMelech says that you possibly get what I'm trying to tell you only if you dig it and search for it, and you will, put all your effort to it. So again, it's a contradiction. Either it's evident, or you have to look for it, search for it like silver and gold. And then he tells you more than that. And then he continues, V'ineh kosuv oimer, and the pasuk says, Hein yiras Hashem hi chachma. Yiras Hashem is wisdom. Right? And our rabbis say, Hein achas. Hein, the word hein means one. Shekem b'loshen yivoni koren le'achas hein, because in Greek, hein is one. Hare, he says, Shehayira hi chochma. So you see from this pasuk and the way it's understood by our sages that yira, fear of Hashem, is wisdom, right? V'hi levada chochma, and it's the only wisdom, right? Right, he's about to say that, right? Exactly. So, and it's the only wisdom, and it's the only wisdom. Right, and he says, obviously you can't call something chokhmah that doesn't require any in-depth analysis, right? So again, so he's telling me that first in the beginning he tells me, hey, listen, everything here is pashut and obvious, but then he's telling me the only true wisdom is yira. So, so again, so I'm assuming you can't reconcile those two things. Those two things are just contradictory. But why is, but then the obvious question is, so why is chokhmah yira? I don't know. I understand yira is a nice thing. It's a nice frum thing. What makes it the ultimate wisdom in the understanding of Ramachal? Why is it the ultimate wisdom? Right? We say, Reishus chokhmah yiras Hashem. Yeah, he says it there too. Right? Reishus chokhmah. Hein yiras Hashem hi chokhmah. Yira is the only wisdom. Why is that the only wisdom? Philosophy is pretty serious wisdom. Astronomy, mathematics, pretty serious wisdom. What makes yira the only wisdom?
You're yira only when you get to that top level.
The what?
You attain that yira when you get to that top level.
And okay, but why is that the only? It's true, but that's in saintliness. You can have a saintly person that's not super wise, super smart. Right, and it's again that we had that struggle in the end where he says really kedusha is available to every individual. It doesn't have to be the biggest chacham in the world, right? But so my understanding is again in his worldview, right? Meaning in his understanding of yiras Hashem, which is yiras chet, right? In other words, Hashem placed you into this world, right, in order for you to elevate every possible thing that's coming to you. And so a person who is on that level of yiras chet, where he sees everything that's created, right, in every creation, he views it in the lens of my ability to not be able to be tainted by it, right? So you have to see the very nature of everything that exists that Hashem put in front of you in order to elevate it or in order to downgrade it, right? Into not only it, but everything that stands behind it, and also human nature as it relates to it, right? So it really is, in order to reach that level of yiras chet that he demands, you really need to have not only Torah at your fingertips, you need to have the entire creation at your fingertips, right? So again, it's a complete transformation of what yiras chet really is and what a person is supposed to do with it, right? So yes, so again, so it's a very different thing that you don't, when you read the introduction until you get to the end, you don't really fully appreciate how much of a power statement he's making right in the beginning. Okay, that's point number one. So now let's go back just for a second, just to understand, just to contrast a little bit. So in the Gemara, right, where the Ramchal begins this. Okay, one more thing. Before he gets to the Gemara, the Ramchal brings the pasuk of Ve'ata Yisrael Ma Hashem Elokecha Shoel Me'amach, right? Also in the introduction, he says, and now, right, Moshe Rabbeinu says, and now, right, Ve'ata Yisrael, now Israel, Ma Hashem Elokecha Shoel Me'amach, what Hashem, your God, asks of you, right? And this famous pasuk, it says, Kim Le'ira, as Hashem Elokecha, only to fear Hashem, right? How does the pasuk go? Right, Moshe Rabbeinu Olav Shalom Melamdeinu be'Omrei. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu is teaching us. Ve'ata Yisrael Ma Hashem Elokecha Shoel Me'amach. What is Hashem asking of you? Ki im liyiras Hashem Elokecha, that you fear Hashem your God. L'leches b'chol derechov, you have to walk in His ways. Ule'ahavo Yisrael, you need to love Him. Ule'avoid es Hashem Elokecha b'chol v'chol b'chol nafshecha. Lishmar es mitzvos Hashem v'eschol kaisof. Right. So over here there are 5 aspects, 5 categories of things that Hashem wants us to do, right? Demands of us. And again, what's the focus of all these 5 things? What is the focus of the Gemara that brings this, right? Ki'im li'ira, only to fear. Mm-hmm. And as the Gemara says, but yira is such a small thing. And the Gemara says, L'gabi Moshe milsa zutra sehi. Yeah, for Moshe, it is a small thing, right? But, or next to Moshe, by Moshe, for Moshe, whatever the case may be. But again, there are 4 other things. Why is the Gemara focusing on yira, right? Again, according to Ramchal, it fits much more, because yira is another way of understanding what the project is, right? Again, even though yira, as I'm saying, the project really is Chassidus, and yira, that type of yira, is part of Chassidus, which is an expression of love and going out of your way, right? But the point is, Kim liyira, is that is the entire project, to get to that level, that new level, that highest level of fear. Okay?
Is a project, why it's not Kedusha? Why it's project Chassidus?
Why it's not Kedusha? So, because Kedusha is a gift. Kedusha, Ramchal says in the end, Kedusha is the last midah, but most of it is just a gift. It's the result of this entire project. Right? It's not really, there is a part that the person does, but most of it is finally but it's not yours. You're not expected to achieve the result. We're not the kind of people, again, I think we mentioned this before, from Rav Shamshon Hirsch, says the difference in Moshe Rabbeinu and Bilam is that Bilam could do all sorts of meditations, permutations to talk to Hashem whenever he wanted. It's pretty big. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do that. Moshe Rabbeinu waited, Vayikral Moshe, he waited to be called. So if anybody can compare Moshe and Bilam, they would say Bilam is much greater. He can talk to God whenever he wants, right? But our view, because again, we're not here for God to serve us. We are here for us to serve Hashem. So our job is to be the keli, to become the vessel to receive. And if Hashem chooses for us to be, to actually receive, okay, so then we will receive. But if He doesn't choose, okay, that's not our business, right? Our business is to do what we can do, right? So in that sense, kedusha is the goal, but we'll let the boss decide what he wants to do. Okay, now back to so he brings the pasuk from Moshe Rabbeinu, and then he says, but I have a Gemara from Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair that is much more what he calls behadraga. Behadraga meaning it's level, step by step, it's level by level, right? So now let's go back and look at this Gemara. Okay, so this is an Avodah Zarah. Tanu Rabbanan. Our rabbis have taught, "V'nishmarta mikol davara." So the pasuk says that you have to guard yourself, "V'nishmarta mikol davara," from any evil thing, right? "V'nishmarta mikol davara." Shelo yeharher odam b'yoyim. The person should not think inappropriate thoughts by day. V'yavoy, and then he will come as a result lidei tuma b'layla, through the tuma by night, meaning nocturnal ejaculation, right? So in other words, so that's what the Chachamim understood in the pasuk. What does it mean? V'nishmar, to guard yourself from kol davara, meaning by day protect yourself, so that you will protect you will protect yourself from the result, right? Now, mikan Omar Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair. So from this idea, the Chachamim, the sages said that you got to guard yourself from what's going to happen as a result. From this idea, Omar Pinchas ben Yair, Torah mevia l'dei zehirus. Torah brings to zehirus, to watchfulness. Zehirus mevia l'dei zrizus. Zehirus then brings to zrizus, which is alacrity. Zrizus mevia l'dei nikiyus. Right? Zrizus brings to cleanliness. Nikiyus mevia l'dei prishus. Cleanliness brings to prishus, which is separation. Prishus, separation, mevi l'dei tahara, brings to tahara. Let's call it purity. Right? Tahara, now here that there are different girsaos, right? And what's so again, girsaos, text variations. Okay? Meaning the way, what is, there's a machlokes here as to what is the proper text. So Ramchal takes the text the way it is written, right? While others, and the Gra, specifically the Gra, says that, and here somebody on the side, that you have to switch them around. Okay? So let's see how it goes. So far everybody's the same. But then what Tahara Mevir Lidei, so Tahara brings to what? So we have in parentheses over here Chasidus, right? Which is the way the Ramchal also takes that approach. Mevir Lidei Chasidus. The Tahara, purity, again, purity in the Ramchal's world, what does purity mean? Purity means removing any ulterior motives. Pure means no imperfections. And what are imperfections? What are impurities? Impurities are any ulterior motives. So, which is, again, my understanding of the Ramchal, Tahara is really the most transformational midah in this progression. Because if the entire progression is based on the idea of you becoming less and less self-centered, Tahara is the midah where a person really transforms his mind to remove all of the self-centeredness. Then, once he does that, then he can progress to other midas like Chasidus, Anova, etc. Okay? So again, so Tahara Mevila de Chasidus over here. That's what it says here. Chasidus Mevila de Anova, and then Chasidus brings to Anova to humility. Okay? Now, that's Ramchal's Girsa version. The Gro's version and the Rif's version is, which two words are more related. Again, Prishus, separation, Mevila de Tahara. Prishus brings to purity. Tahara, Mevila de Kedusha. Tahara brings to Kedusha. And usually Tahar, Kodesh are very words that are closely associated together. So it makes sense that Tahara brings to Kedusha. Or Kedusha brings to Tahara. But those two things would fit very well together. Right? So, okay, but then, right, so again, so it sounds like then the entire, it's a whole different approach. So then, what goes after Tahara? What goes after Kedusha? Kedusha mevia lidei. Now, okay, there's another variant Girsa over here. Over here it says lidei Anova. Kedusha brings to Anova. But the Riv's Girsa is that Kedusha brings to Yiras Chet. Then Yiras Chet mevia lidei Anova. Yiras Chet brings to Anova. And then Anova brings to Chasidus. So the last step in this version, in this Girsa, is Chasidus.
Girsa?
Yeah, Girsa again, this is the text variant. In the version, text variant. Okay? So the last thing is Chasidus. Again, and let's continue. And that's what it says. And then the other next levels are the ones that are gifted, right? So b'chasidus mevia l'dei ruach hakodesh, right? Then from there you get to ruach hakodesh. Ruach hakodesh mevia l'dei tchias hamesim, and ruach hakodesh brings to tchias hamesim. Okay, that's the end of the progression. But then the Gemara
leads to
tchias hamesim,
okay.
right?
Okay.
Meaning that you're on the level of that, meaning almost like a Kodesh Baruch Hu, right? Hashem fully rested His presence on you to the point that you could possibly revive the dead. Okay, so then the Gemara says, "V'chasidus g'dola mekulan," and Chasidus is greater than all of them. Okay, v'chasidus g'dola mekulan, Chasidus is greater than all of them. Shneimar, as it says, "Oz dibarta b'chazoin lechasidecha," that Hashem speaks in visions to His Chasidim. So we see that Hashem speaks to Chasidim. It doesn't say tzaddikim, it doesn't say neviim. The quality that Hashem is looking for when He wants to talk to somebody is Chasidus. Okay? But then the Gemara says, Upliga de Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. However, that argues on Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. The Omer Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Anova Gedola Mekulan, that it's humility that's greater than all of them. Shneimar Ruach Hashem Elakim Allah Yan Moshach. This is a long pasuk. Levaser Anovim, to give news to Anovim, to humble ones.
Okay.
So Chasidim lo nemer, it doesn't say Chasidim. Ela Anovim, rather it says humble ones. Okay. Holamadata she'anova gedola mekulan. So we see from this, he says that Anova gedola mekulan. And the Yerushalmi has in their version the same thing again, but except again, and this is all I'm working right now, not in Ramchal's Girsa. I'm working in the alternative Girsa of the Rif. That in Yerushalmi, the last thing is not Chasidus, like in this version, but rather Anova, like according to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, who says Anova Gedoyla Mikulam. Right? Since it seems like there's a machloikas here, what is greater, Chasidus or Anova? Meaning that's the argument is which Mida should take the last place from the progression.
Hasidus goes first.
So either Hasidus goes first and then Anova, or either Anova goes first and then Hasidus. But these two Midas are the greatest, the top of the tree, so to speak, right? The top of the progression. Mm-hmm. Okay?
So again, is like Hasidus include in itself, you're supposed to be Anav when you Chosik?
Right, true, 100%. But Anova, because it's such a difficult thing, okay, and it's a never-ending progression. It's not like a person is right, as we see from Moshe Rabbeinu. Since Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest Anav that ever lived, right, and even greater than Avram Avinu, and even right. So what does that mean? Either if you're already an Anav, you're an Anav, right? Must be that Anova is not just a station that you get to. It's a trip. It's a whole ride, and you just keep on riding as far as you can go.
Journey.
Right, it's a journey, exactly. It's not a destination.
Okay.
So therefore, Anova takes on its own category. Okay. So again, I just want to understand this alternative view of Rav Pinchas ben Yair that's not exactly the Ramchal, and maybe this way we'll appreciate the Ramchal's view better. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's best. Okay, and there's another question on the Ramchal. I mean, the way that just the Gemara, the basic understanding of this Gemara is v'nishmarta mikol davara, right? You have to guard yourself from any evil thing. From there, we learn that you gotta, watch your thoughts by day so that nothing bad comes out by night.
Probably not only thoughts, but also your eyes,
right?
Your actions,
100%,
where you locate.
Even if the point is, even your thoughts, right?
Like
even your
first
thoughts.
Perek, the happy
right.
Asher is the guy who didn't go anywhere, like
Asher is correct person.
Exactly.
Right. So right, exactly. Right. So you have to, but then from here, Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair says, and he builds this whole progression. What's the connection? What did Rav Pinchas ben Yair see in the pasuk of V'nishmarta ben kol davara that said, from here you see that, and he builds a whole whole framework of Judaism from this simply simple thing, right?
Concepts,
right? So that's number one. Number two, you see, if you look at Rashi over here.
Is that Mechaber or it's not Mechaber?
No.
It has been here,
no. In terms of why Mechaber?
No, I mean we mentioned Mechaber before.
No, Mechaber is just another word for an author.
Okay.
Author. Mechaber really, the reason why it's called an author is because he is like from word chaver, to bring together other ideas together.
But I think
into a book.
Means also some person.
So usually we refer to Mechaber as the Shulchan Aruch. Because again, he brought down halachas from different sources and made the mechaber. So
not specific author.
But right, meaning generally it's not a specific author, but most commonly it's attributed to the Shulchan Aruch. The mechaber says. So that's when if it says like that, then it's referring to the Shulchan Aruch.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyway, so look what Rashi says over here. Incredible thing. So first of all, again, it explains V'nishmarta b'kol davara, explains how we learn from there that a thought in the morning leads to bad stuff during the night. Okay, but then he says, look how he defines zrizus, right? How do we define zrizus? Somebody who does everything with energy, with alacrity, the opposite of laziness, right? Rashi defines zrizus. Zoriz v'nishmar. He is Zoris, zealous, v'nishmar, so therefore he's extra careful. Koidim lechem, beforehand. Shloi tova avera liyodai kihocha, so that an avera should not come to his hand. Just like over here, the eina meharhei lavoy l'dei tuma. So therefore, he avoids thoughts by day so that he doesn't come. So zoriz, according to Rashi's understanding, is very different from Ramchal's understanding. Ramchal's understanding that Zohir is somebody who watches himself relating to negative commandments. Zoriz is somebody who's extra energetic when it comes to positive commandments. Right? Rashi understands that Zohir is somebody who's careful in negative commandments. Zoriz is somebody who's extra careful in the negative commandments because he's maintaining even a bigger distance so that he shouldn't come to the thoughts afterwards. So according to Rashi, it sounds like when the Gemara says Mikan Amar Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoyer, he's specifically referring to this idea of zrizus. That I see that not only Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoyer figured out, I realize I can't only be a Zohir, a careful guy, I have to be an extra careful, a Zoriz. What about the other 10 levels or 8 levels, whatever the other 8 levels? Okay, but that already Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoyer added those on. But the beginning of the lesson is being either Zohir and Zoriz. And over here they say the same thing in this introduction, even for Ramchal, because so for Ramchal, how does he understand what does Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoyer want with this pasuk v'nishmartem mikol davar ra? So they say over here, I lost it. Hold on. Where'd you go? Oh, here. It says, the subsequent traits are not directly derived from the sage's teaching. Okay? Right? Because he says, it's supposed to be here, sorry. The Torah, right? So he says, the Torah teaches us, right? And you shall beware of any evil thing. It's teaching us that that the Torah revealed to us that we would not know that one must control his thoughts, right? My thoughts are my thoughts. The fact that there's a consequence afterwards, I'm not responsible for those consequences. The answer is you are responsible for the consequences. So, okay, so the Torah teaches us the extent to which a person must protect himself from sin and how successful he can be if he is vigilant. Hence, therefore, the Torah, meaning this idea of the Torah, brings us to Zehirus. That's the main teaching. The subsequent traits are not directly derived.
Remind me, what's Zehirus?
Zehirus is watchfulness, right?
Carefulness?
Right. Okay. The subsequent traits are not directly derived from the sage's teachings. Just, however, once a person has attained the quality of Zehirus, where he can be mindful and vigilant and does not allow his physicality to govern his life, he has placed himself on the path to even loftier levels of spirituality. So really, Rav Pinchas ben Yoyer's teaching from the pasuk ends by Zehirus, according to Art Scrolls over here in explanation. According to Rashi, maybe it ends by Zrizus, right? But the rest of the progression is not really from this pasuk of V'nishmarta mikol dovara. Okay? And I'm going to argue that's not, I don't think that's the case at all. On 2 levels, that's not the case at all. Okay? Alright, so but we'll get there in a second. So let's just look at how Maharal understands this Gemara, which is different from, right? Again, I'm not going to read the whole thing. So he brings the Gemara, right? Again, just remember the progression. The progression is after Prishus, Tahara, after Tahara, Kedusha, after Kedusha, Anova, Yireschet, after Yireschet, Chasidus, or the other way around. Right? Right. Okay. Now, just want to point out that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, he's the one that says Anova is greater than all of them. Right? Happens to be Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi also says in Gemara Soita that, and Ramchal brings it in the Nova, is that a person, he says, how great are people who have low spirits? That a person, when Beis Mikdash was around, the person brings a korban, oila, he gets the oila. If he brings a korban chatas, he gets the korban chatas. If he brings a korban shlomim, he gets the korban shlomim. Somebody who's of an onav, he's like it's if like he brought all karbonos in the world, right? Because zivchei elakim ruach nishbara, right? A broken spirit are like the karbonos of Hashem, plural. Like all the karbonos of Hashem is a broken spirit, right? So we see, right? Again, like we said, the famous phrase by the Baal Shem Tov: there is nothing more whole than a broken heart, or something like that, right? So right. So right. So we understand why the connection here. Rabbi Shua ben Levi is l'shitose, right? Or his following is consistent with this idea that anova by him is like the ultimate thing. And then, fine, let's come back. We'll come back to this anova in a second. So, birzeh. No, I'm in the wrong one. Sorry. I'll just
wonder why is like nothing wholesome than broken heart.
What? We discussed. Oh, okay, we'll come back to it in a second. Anyway, so he says over here like this. So it says v'girsa zois yoyser nachoina. He says this version is more correct. Mishum hamayla halyoina shu chasidus shuroi sheyabacharona. Because the topmost should be chasidus, because it says chasidus is greater than all of them. Begimara maskir Torah b'rishoina. Again, I just want to. It's not really. Okay, let's come here. So first he tells us that the Torah brings a person to Zehirus. So what is Zehirus? When a person is extra careful from sin. Okay, so again, that's also different. V'zeu Zehirus, that's Zehirus. And Ramchal's understanding of Zehirus is not extra careful from sin. It's Zehirus means just being watchful, and analyzing your deeds, trying to do the right thing. That's really, but Ramchal understands Zehirus is already something beyond, just knowing what to do and doing it, right? So Zehirus is already an extra measure of watchfulness. Okay. Once you get to that level, Zehirus may be lidei zrizus. Zehirus brings to zrizus. He has Zehirus hu shenizar menachet. Again, he understands like Rashi that Zehirus is being careful to distance yourself from sin. Aval hazrizus shemisrachik menachek shelu yovochet liyodoi is somebody who distances himself from sin, that even that it shouldn't come to his hand. So it's an extra measure of distancing from sin. Shekol kach hu yorei be'ulayich yachta. He's so worried that maybe he'll sin. V'zoriz who is I skipped. Yeah, v'zor is who. So therefore, he's extra zealous. Lihisrachek shelo yovei chet liyoda, that a chet shouldn't even come to his hand to even. Not only is he distancing from sin, he's distancing from the availability of sin. So he shouldn't have even the option to sin.
Gets himself out of this potential
nisoya. Correct.
People forecast where they don't go into that direction, try to avoid those ways. Right. Not to put themselves in these situations.
Right. V'kach pirish Rashi, and that's how Rashi understands zrizus. V'kasher yesh loi zrizus, when he gets to the level of zrizus, that he doesn't even put himself in the situation, maybe lidei nikiyus. What is nikiyus? Again, what is nikiyus? By Ramchal, nikiyus is avoiding cleansing yourself from rationalizations and justifications, right? Things that you are not good, but you rationalize or you justify that they're fine, that they're okay, right? We're all like that. I mean, everybody has their thing that they overlook, not because they necessarily don't want to not do it. It's just because they've we're by nature, again, the whole our self-centeredness forces us to be somewhat biased. There's no individual that's unbiased, right? Right? Some people are more biased, like people who think Hamas is a charity organization, or whatever. Okay.
Freedom fighters.
Right, freedom fighters. Exactly. Right. So But again, that's Ramchal's understanding of Nikiyas. What is the Maharal's understanding of Nikiyas? Shehu misalik atzma min hapchisus ve'agnus. That he distances himself not only from things that are asur, but he distances himself from things that are lowly, pchisus ve'agnus, something that's just lowly, it's just beneath a heligayid, right?
Questionable stuff.
Right. Av ki ein bezechet, even though that itself is not a chet. Rak gnus upchisus, only like vulgarity and loneliness. V'zenikra nikiyas, and that's called cleanliness. So cleanliness, again, Ramchal's. So I'm just showing you right now.
Loneliness.
Lowliness.
Okay, lowly.
Right. So I'm showing you that in the Maharal, the entire progression of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoyer is removal from negativity, right? It's removal from negativity until maybe you get Chasidus all the way at the end. You can get only into Chasidus after 9 layers of removal from physicality, so to speak, right? That's Maharal's understanding of the progression, right? While Ramchal's understanding of progression is very multimodal. There's a negative commandments removal, and there's positive commandments approval, so to speak, and you're moving up on multiple directions, right? Very different systems of thought. Av dover she'eino echet min haTorah v'hu prishus v'omar. Then he says nikiyus maybe till day prishus min hachet, and then nikiyus, cleanliness, even brings you to prishus, to separation from the chet. What's separation already? I already cleansed myself from even not only chet, not only coming into my hand, even things that are even lowly. So what's prishus, right? Says av dover she'eino echet min haTorah v'hu prishus v'archoka. I distance myself not only from the things that are chet, I distance myself in order to be extra, like siyag, right? Put my extra fences. Prishus maybe l'dei tahara. Once I made extra harchokos, I says I come to tahara, to purity. What is purity? Right? What is purity? V'atahara hi shemisalekes haneshama mikol tiyuv shel tuma. That the neshama is separated from any remnant of tuma. Shehi mitzad hachutz, which is from the outside.
What's harchokas?
Harchoka means distancing, right? Extra fences. Ulefikach omar tahara bolek de kedusha. So it's tahara. He also understands some kind of an internal spiritual distance from any external influences. Okay, but then tahara brings to kedusha. V'zehu yoiser ma'ila. That's kedusha on top of tahara is even a greater level. Ad she'odam nichnas b'madrega elyoina. Shehem kedoshim nivdolim min haguf, which is holy ones that are separated from the body, right? So again, I'm just showing you that the progression is distancing yourself from the physical world. There is the part of the physical world which is sinful, and that's the first 2 levels. But then you continue removing yourself from the physical world in order because spiritual and physical in the Ramchal's world are in conflict, right? And if you want to become closer to Hashem, you have to distance yourself from the physicality. Okay? V'omer kedusha maybe l'deya anova, and then kedusha finally brings to anova. Where does anova come in? Right? Again, this is going to be the machlokas. Remember, anova and chasidus are going to be the machlokas. Ki ha'anova hu pshitus hagomer. Ramchal understands anova as complete pshitus, simplicity. Simplicity. And again, he has a whole chapter over here on Anova, where simplicity, in a certain sense, he explains why it's, even according to Rabbi Shua ben Levi, why it's the greatest thing. Why is Anova specifically the greatest thing? Because, and this is also... those are synonymous, according to him. Okay. Because Anova, he says even more than Yiras Chet and even more than Chasidus, according to Bishur ben Levi, is the greatest quality. And this is from this statement of Chazal that Ramchal also brings at the end of Anova, which I don't know how it fits into his system, right? Let's see if you remember this statement. So the last bit of Anova and Ramchal over here is Ashri Misha Zoicha Lemidazu. Praiseworthy is the one who merits this midah of Anova. Ukvar Omru, and our sages said, Mashu Osasa Chochma Torah L'Reisha, what Chochma made as a crown for its head, right? Meaning what? Reishis Chochma Yiras Hashem.
Yeah.
So Reishis, which is the beginning, but also Roish is the head.
Yeah.
Reishis Chochma, the beginning or the end of Chochma, or the head of Chochma. What's the head of Chochma? What's on top of Chochma? Yiras Hashem. Also, so Anova, Okev Lusuliosa. Anova made Yiras Hashem as a heel for its shoe.
One more time.
Anova made it as a heel for its shoe. I don't know exactly what's heel for its shoe, but the bottom part of its shoe, basically, or the heel. I don't know why, because it says Ekev Anova Yiras Hashem.
Ekev
is the heel.
Yeah, heel.
So Ekev Anova Yiras Hashem. So the heel of Anova is Yiras Hashem. So Reishis Chochma is the head of Chochma is Yiras Hashem, but it's also the heel of Anova. So this pasuk seems to be saying, again, pointing that Anova is greater than Chochma and Yiras Hashem. Okay? And Maharal explains in the section of Anova, Maharal explains that Anova is the most godlike quality that a person can have. Right? We say it on Moshe Shabbos. Any place you find the greatness of Hashem, you also find His humility. Right? And this is written in Torah and Nevi'im and Ksuvim. Right? And
humility of Hashem, you say?
Yes. Right. Again, the way humility of Hashem is described there, that He's equally respectful to the greatest of people, to the lowliest of people. Right. So that's how it emanates. But the point is that what humility, according again, Maharal's understanding is it's pshitus, it's the simplicity. Simplicity is a godlike quality, because Hashem is one. He's simple. He has no multiple personalities, so to speak, no multiple faculties. It's all one simple existence, right? So according to Maharal, Anova is that level of simplicity that is very godlike. Okay, and that's why by definition it says you could be a chacham. Again, this idea, you could be a very smart person, okay, but you may not have yiras Hashem. But he says, but if you're a humble person, it's not possible, he says, that you're not going to get to yiras Hashem. It's not possible. Okay? And that's, again, we see it with our own eyes. You could be a very smart person, and you could have completely warped views when it comes to morality. Right?
Every day.
Why is that? Why? I mean, usually we say, if you ask me, who would I trust on morality? A dumb person or a smart person? I mean, I would say a dumb person doesn't have the nuance to understand what's right and what's wrong in many situations. Of course, I would trust a smart person, right? But that's only if a person. But what really is, there's a prerequisite. There's a prerequisite there that says humility. Humility says, you know what? Maybe I'm biased. Maybe I'll check myself. Let me take a look. Where am I getting my ideas from? Right? Humility makes you reassess what your belief system is, right? So then your wisdom, combined with humility, will take you to emes, to take you to the truth. But right? And it doesn't make a difference if you're dumb or not. I mean, obviously, a person who's not smart, he won't be able to sometimes comprehend the truth of every situation because he doesn't have the kelim. But in any place where he has the kelim, he will be able to get to the truth. So in a certain sense, Anova, that's the Maharal's understanding, is even greater than wisdom, because wisdom is vulnerable to bias. It's vulnerable to the wrong place. But with Anova, you're guaranteed to get to the right place. Let's just back over here. Oh wow, it's getting late. So Anova maybe l'deyireschet ki kasher hu bal Anova, when a person is an onav, a humble person, yesh la hiskarvus el Hashem yisbarach, mitzad hamadrega azois hianova. Because when a person is the midah of bala midah of anova, of humility, then he has a closeness to Hashem because of this madrega. V'zeh she'omer HaKosov, this is what the pasuk says, Eikav anova, the heel of anova is Yiras Hashem. Upirash Zeh, he says, I explained this earlier. Ki anova mevi l'dei Yiras Chet. V'omer, then he says, Yiras Chet, Yiras Hashem mevi l'dei Chesidus. Right? So then finally we get to Chesidus, because this is that opinion, that Chesidus is the top of the tower. Ha-Chesidus hu zakus ha-nefesh legamri. Chesidus is purification of the nefesh completely. Okay? So again, Ramchal's understanding is Chesidus is positive expression of love, and Maharal's understanding is it's the last level of total purification from Gashmias.
Like last step.
Right, but the point of Chesidus is purification from Gashmias. Purification from Gashmias. Chesidus is zakus haneshama, is the purification of the neshama.
Zakus.
Yeah. Right? Shemen zayis zach, right? Pure oil. So zakus haneshama. Right? Again, so he understands Chesidus as closeness to Hashem, certainly. But why is it closeness to Hashem? Because it's distance from Gashmius, right? And that's why Chesidus is at the top of the tower. And then he says in another place, Chesidus is goodness, is total goodness. Good and Gashmius are not compatible, right? Good means godliness, and godliness can only be not ungashmius. So the more ungashmius a person is, the more spiritual he is, and the closer he is to Hashem. Okay, so that's it. Again, so what did we get today? Hopefully we got something today. But so what I'm just saying is, number one is the overview from Mesilas Yesharim, right? That whole tower, which I'm not going to go through the whole thing, where Yashrus is the vehicle that takes you through all the midas, and how all the midas are divided into these two halves, tzidkus and chasidus. And chasidus is an expression of love, and how Yiras Hashem is really the theme of the project, right? This new understanding of what Yiras Hashem is and why it is the ultimate wisdom, right? Because it is at the center of what Hashem wants from the human race, right? You only understand the world in as much as Hashem wants you to understand it in order to you can become godlike, right? And then we also saw an alternative view of this Memar Chazal. Okay, but one last point I have to say is that, right, so the question is, what is, according to Ramchal, how does he understand this idea of Vinishmarta Mikol Dovara, right? From here you learn that you can, right? And then he builds this whole edifice from this pasuk. So two ideas come to my mind. First of all, according to Ramchal and according to Rav Pinchas ben Yair, you see that there's a chain of events. The key lesson from this idea that thought by day leads to something else by night teaches you that all of our thoughts, actions, emotions are interrelated, right? And like we say, you go on the bad path and it will lead you to worse things, right? Similarly, it says Rav Pinchas ben Yair that the same idea that we learn from bad, that if you do one bad thought, it will lead you to some bad action towards later. Wait, it goes the other way around too. You do one good thought, you're going to be on the train to kedusha, to holiness. So the main lesson that Rav Pinchas ben Yair Mekan from where? From the fact that there's a link. Oh, there's a link this way. Let me teach you about the link in the other direction. That's one understanding. And the next understanding is really, again, what's the end of the tower according to Ramchal? Yiras Chet. Yiras Chet. So Vinishmarta Mikol Dovara is the whole idea of Yiras Chet, that I avoid anything that might bring me to even Chet by mistake, by honest. I was sleeping. It wasn't my fault. It didn't have to do with it. No. If you understand this idea, Vinishmarta Mikol Dovara is Ramchal's Yiras Chet. That's exactly what Ramchal is saying, that Rav Pinchas ben Yair sees the entire progression in that pasuk of Nishmarta Mikol Davara, that you have to watch yourself from any thing of evil. Okay.